Picture sitting down to execute a critical project. You have the skills, you have the time, and you are entirely capable of doing the work. And suddenly, you just can't. Instead of attacking the core task, you find yourself organizing an inbox that is already perfectly clean. You check your feeds, you do superficial prep work. The contrast is jarring. You manage complex problems and heavy responsibilities all day, but this specific task feels like a physical wall. Here's what's interesting about that paradox. It completely baffles the person experiencing it. Without a mechanical explanation for why we stall, most of us jump to the same conclusion: I must be lazy. We assume there is an inherent flaw in our work ethic or a fundamental lack of discipline. That story quickly turns into a narrative of character failure, which generates a heavy sense of guilt. The counterintuitive part is that guilt actually makes the next attempt to start the work feel even heavier and more difficult. Treating procrastination as a character flaw misdiagnoses the mechanism, leading us to solve for the entirely wrong problem. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem. On the outside, the behavior looks like the avoidance of work, but that appearance is an illusion. The driver is the avoidance of a specific internal state. You are sidestepping the negative emotion that your brain predicts the task will produce. Moving past the label of laziness allows us to look closely at the actual mechanics of the brain. Once we recognize delay as a symptom of emotional avoidance rather than a lack of willpower, we can apply tools that actually work. In the milliseconds before you initiate action, your brain runs a predictive model to anticipate what doing the work will feel like. This process is called an affective forecast. As this graph illustrates, the forecast measures several variables. First, raw effort. How much cognitive energy will this require? Second, uncertainty. Is the path to completing this task clear, or is it highly ambiguous? The nervous system hates ambiguity because it cannot efficiently predict the energy expenditure required to navigate it. Then there's the variable of boredom, whether the task will severely understimulate your nervous system. These variables sum together to create an invisible emotional weight attached to the task. The friction you feel right now is the weight of this combined emotional forecast hitting you all at once. There is a final variable in that forecast that often paralyzes capable people: identity threat. The internal dialogue is a fear that trying your best and failing would mean you aren't as smart as you thought you were. For ambitious professionals, tying self-worth to a specific outcome creates an intolerable emotional risk. Looking back at our timeline, when the total emotional forecast registers negatively, the straight path forward gets blocked. The nervous system makes a real-time trade-off to protect itself. It prioritizes immediate mood repair, short-term relief, over long-term goal execution. This is the mechanism behind mindlessly scrolling, organizing a clean desk, or answering low-stakes emails. Those actions provide immediate certainty, low effort, and zero threat to your self-image. From a mechanical perspective, this diversion is a functional response of the nervous system. It is a systematic trade. Exchanging your law instinct is to attempt to apply pure brute force. They set aggressive deadlines without adding clarity or rely on vague commands to just start. Piling on intense internal shame typically causes the process to backfire. Panic and shame can occasionally force a frantic burst of action, though the evidence on this being a sustainable strategy is mixed. While panic works for a single deadline, it corrodes the ability to maintain focus over time. Using shame makes the task drastically more emotionally charged, ensuring it will be more aversive the next time you encounter it. Attempting to overpower a negative emotional forecast with the negative emotion of shame simply increases the total weight of the task. Since the problem is a negative emotional forecast, the sustainable fix is to alter that forecast. You do this by deliberately shrinking the emotional commitment of your very first move. Making the entry point incredibly small prevents the brain's identity threat alarms from triggering. Strip away the abstract goal and identify the literal, immediate next physical action. Optionally, pair this tiny start with a slightly positive cue, like a specific playlist or a good beverage. Pairing a microscopic physical action with a positive cue tips the forecast from threat to neutral, bypassing the mood repair trap. Here is a protocol to try today. Pick the exact task you have been avoiding. Define just 90 seconds of real physical engagement with it. Open the file, write one true sentence, or move just one unit forward. Grant yourself full, guilt-free permission to stop after those 90 seconds. This permission lowers the stakes and proves to your inner critic that initiation is an option, not an inescapable contract. Continuing past those 90 seconds often happens naturally, but it must remain strictly optional to keep the forecast neutral. If you take one thing from this, try 90 seconds on the thing you're avoiding. Same screen, same file, no quality bar. You're testing whether the wall was the start, not the whole project.